Tashi Dilek, welcome to Tibettv's weekly analysis. Today we are going to discuss Mao Zedong's five-finger strategy, its impact on Himalayan geopolitics. During recent skirmishes at Indo-Tibet border at Ladakh, the president of Central Tibetan Administration, Dr. Lobsang Sangye, has been invited to speak on the situation by top Indian national TVs, during which Dr. Sangye firmly emphasized on China pursuing Mao Zedong's five-finger strategy. The strategy to expand China's territorial claim over neighboring countries, including India. To explore more on this strategy and its impact on Himalayan geopolitics, I'm joined by research scholar Shan Kashyapji from Jawaharlal Nehru University. Shan Kashyap is a research scholar at Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi. Previously, he has worked as an assistant editor in Organizer Weekly, and he contributes articles on national and international politics in many newspapers. Welcome to our program, Shanji. It is always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Okay, now let me get straight to the question. What is Mao Zedong's five-finger strategy, and how has it shaped China's expansionist maneuver?
Mao Zedong considered Tibet to be China's right-hand palm. With five fingers, Nepal, Bhutan, and three Indian territories of Ladakh, Sikkim, and Arunachal Pradesh, that China was also meant to liberate in Chinese Communist Party's framework. Now you know that Mao's 1962 war against India helped China gain more territory in Ladakh, and it earlier grabbed a big chunk called Daksai Chin region. Now, Mao's China annexed, Xinjiang and Tibet, more than doubling the country's territory, and the annexation of resource-rich Tibet in particular represented one of the most far-reaching geopolitical developments in post-World War II history. The first decade of People's Republic of China, with the end, and Beijing's violent incorporation of Tibet into its political domain, not only tarnished PRC's erstwhile image as a benevolent power among its friendly Asian neighbors, but also altered Chinese party leaders' reputation as a masterful communist operatives among their Cold War adversaries. Now, if I can just add to that to your viewers, that a recent book called To the End of Revolution, the Chinese Communist Party and Tibet, which came from Columbia University Press this year, shows that how Communist Party of China's perception on Tibet has kept changing, and how the party has really made, lies, historical lies, and coveted it to the people. So this whole maneuver and the Chinese expansion, it is mostly about the beliefs of what Mao really had. It might not be historically true and accurate.
Okay, Shanji, now the next question is related to the current political scenario happening in China. So during a Wuhan-originated coronavirus pandemic, Chinese President Xi Jinping has asserted more emphasis on regional dominance. It is clear from Indo-Tibet border skirmishes. Is he following the same strategy led down by Mao Zedong?
Well, both yes and no. The potential explanation that certainly has gained currency in mainstream media is that Beijing is attempted to exploit the ongoing coronavirus pandemic for geopolitical gains. The theory fits well in the overall narrative of rising Chinese assertiveness since the start of the pandemic, including against that of Taiwan, Hong Kong, the maritime counterclaimants in the East and South China Seas. However, Beijing had already been increasingly threatening the Indo-Pacific region pre-pandemic. We must remember that. So instead, what we are witnessing in the recent past is more likely a continuation of an ongoing trend rather than a departure from it. This is also true in the Himalayas, which we are concerned mostly about, where Chinese violation of the line of actual control are a regular occurrence. On the comparison of Mao and Xi, look, this is a changed world. We are not in 1950s and 60s anymore. While Mao could have afforded a direct confrontation, perhaps Xi certainly cannot. And while Jawaharlal Nehru might have failed in the war of perception globally, Narendra Modi might not. So, for instance, we did not had a DSDBO, which for your viewers is an all-weather road, 250 kilometers long road, which has provided a very entrance in the geostrategically sensitive entrance point into the rest of Xinjiang province of China. And today, PLA finds Indian soldiers in locations where they are not used to seeing the Indian footprints. Indian Army's patrolling is more effective than in the past, forcing Chinese military to up the ante. Therefore, even when Xi Jinping may be trying hard to pursue the same expansionist maneuver like Mao, but it might not end as planned as perhaps it did in the past once.
Okay, Sean. In one of Professor Brahmachilani's recent articles titled Five Finger Punch, he opined Tibet is the key to China's territorial claims in the Himalayan region, and not only because of geography. As long as the Communist Party of China, and especially China's revisionist President Xi Jinping, holds a monopoly on power, none of the country's neighbors will be safe. Do you agree with this argument?
That's true and precise. However, agreeing largely with Professor Brahmachalani, at the same breath, we should also realize that someday this 67-year-old president and general secretary would be replaced by another potentially similar man in the office. So it really doesn't stop at Xi Jinping, and the quest of monopoly won't change, at least for the CPC. But as former Prime Minister of India, Atal Bihari Vajpayee once very succinctly said that since we cannot change our neighbors, we have to learn to live with them. So today the battle is no more about the territorial claims alone. It is also about how do we proceed in the war of perception and propaganda in exclaiming the representation of territorial claims to our sides. How successfully we can redirect the approach of international agencies and their pressures to our sides in this whole issue is something which is also of a larger concern.
Okay, Shanji, now I'm coming up with another question with little different perspective. Professor Kondapalli, in one of his recent interviews, he said, Bodil tussle has debunked the myth of asymmetry in power. At what degree has India been successful at deterring China when it took a tough stand on the borders? Do you think China sees India as a stumbling block to its regional hegemony?
See, that may be more about how approaches of international relations really differ from one another. One a scholar differing from other because the approaches differ, and that's really, are you a realist or that kind of stuff, which is largely theoretical. But of course, there was this argument that India being a $2 trillion economy and China being 5 times, that meant that China had a major advantage. They have a much stronger military, much stronger and bigger economy, bigger military expenditure, and etc. And so India is no match for China. That was the perception which was being built in over decades now. But that myth has been busted. So Professor Kondapalli there is spot on, because one of the things is that whenever in the last few years, especially after 2014 and this new government in India in place, at the issue of border escalation, India has always deterred China, and it has pushed the country back on the table for a peaceful dialogue. Now, as we know that a weaker enemy cannot lead you to peace, only equals or stronger do that. So, however, in the same breath, one cannot belittle the fact of life as such. Chinese advances in manufacturing, global expansions, economic outreach in so many other nations' internal politics is something which is a concern and which we should be worried about. For instance, in the last few months or so, we have seen a very aggressive Chinese propaganda being published in some of the national dailies of India, like the Hindu and the Hindustan Times. And then this is something not new, because this is again all about the perceptions and propagandas which these communist powers keep on forging. Even the erstwhile Soviet Russia has done it so many times, where they go on publishing about their projections and how big powers they are in the publications and medias of the other countries. So, and you should remember recently how Chinese ambassador almost issued a diktat to Indian media on not covering Taiwan's National Day. Now, while there were some, cases of resistance and shouting about it, but many other media houses remained quiet. So I think it's not just about the two extreme positions. It should be about a balance of how tricky things are.
Okay, Shanji, if I now ask you frankly, what is Xi Jinping's ultimate ambition?
Yeah, the alternate ambition seems to be taking where Mao Zedong has left. I mean, if you just leave aside the few years after this Deng Xiaoping's intervention, where there was some kind of an approach to reinstitutionalization and internationalization of the issue, that seems to have just gone away. In the late 1980s, when Hu Jintao became the president of the Tibet Autonomous Region, from there to Xi Jinping, it again seems to have all come back. How Mao used to perceive the global order, how he used to see China as the center of the globe. And that kind of expansion is really there, right there in every kind of projection, whether they are talking about how Jinping's personality cult is being made up. I mean, he is the only third leader after Mao and Deng to have been, incorporated in the constitution. So we can see a larger continuation that where Mao left, Jinping seems to have caught on.
Okay, Shanji, one last question. During the
Sure.
Indo-Tibet border standoff at Ladakh, President of Central Tibetan Administration, Dr. Lobsang Sangye, appeared on many national TV and reiterated strongly that China is pursuing its five-finger strategy. Do you think that his message has penetrated into Indian mindsets?
At least it seems to have reached to the nationalists in India who think of Tibet, CTA, and countering Chinese aggression as an integral part of the deeper national interest. About the Indian mindset as a whole, let me be honest with you, we do not know. Because mindsets, among many things, are also a result of what intelligentsia has to say about the issues at hand, and then how their thoughts, really percolate down to the masses. We should be honest, and then we should be honest in stating that a major section of Indian intelligentsia today is still soft on China, communism, and therefore its excesses. And they also include many China studies scholars as well in this country. So you might not read a lot of things about the so-called Xinjiang re-education camps in many Indian quarters. That silence is deliberate, I must say. And we also need to decode it and understand how nationalists in India and CTA would negotiate with these silences in the future.
With this, we're going to end our discussion here. Thank you, Shankar Shabji, for joining our program.
Thank you so much. Namaste.